Hey everyone, there's a question that I get pretty often, and that's what happens if you file for Social Security but keep working? Could your benefits increase? And I want to answer that question in today's video, but first, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you won't miss any of the new videos we put out. So right here at the beginning, I want to talk about the basics of how to know the effect of continued work on your Social Security benefit. And then towards the end of this video, I want to answer some of the most frequently asked questions I get, like, is a recalculation automatic if I get extra earnings, or do I have to request it? And can my benefit go down if my earnings go down? But first, let's jump into the basics of this. So if you file for Social Security, is your benefit frozen at that point, or can you increase or decrease your benefit if you're still working and paying Social Security taxes? Well, the answer is that your benefit is never really frozen. Additional work that you do can affect your benefit payment. But to fully understand this, we have to go back and get a good grasp on how the benefit is calculated. Now, I have a video that covers this thoroughly, so be sure to watch that if you want all the little granular details. For now, here's the quick summary. At 62, your benefit is calculated using the formula that's specified for those turning 62 in that calendar year. To run this calculation, the Social Security Administration needs to see what your earnings history is. So all of your prior earnings through age 59 are adjusted to account for inflation, and the earnings after that age are used in the actual amount. Now, I'm going to come back to that in just a second because that's the most important part of figuring out how continued work affects your benefit amount. Now, once they've built your prior earnings record, they call these your base years, they take out your highest 35 years. Those are called your computation years. Now, if you didn't work enough to have 35 years of earnings, that calculation is still going to include 35 years. It'll just have zeros in the years of no work. So, for example, if you only work for 25 years, your benefits will be calculated with 25 years of earnings and 10 years of zeros. And just remember on the other side, if you worked for 45 years, only your top 35 years are used. So now that you know it's your highest 35 years of earnings that are used, understanding how your benefit may change with continued work simply becomes an issue of comparing what you are making today or with continued work with the earnings in your list of 35 years of inflation-indexed earnings. If your current earnings exceed one of those years in your list of 35, your benefit will be recomputed and you should see an increase. Remember, you're comparing your current earnings to your prior earnings after those prior earnings have been adjusted for inflation. So one of the most important steps is to understand how to apply that inflation adjustment. Don't worry, it's actually pretty easy with a simple calculator. First, you want to get your earnings history from the Social Security Administration. That's typically on page 3 of your benefits estimate, and you can print that if you have a My SSA account, and if you don't have one, you need to go create one today. Once you have your earnings history, you'll want to go over to the SSA website and get that indexing factor that's specific to the year you turn 62. Now, there's a link in the description that'll take you right to that page. All you need to do is put in the calendar year you turn 62, and it's going to fill in all the indexing factors for you. Then you take your real earnings, that's from your benefits estimate, multiply by the factor shown, and voila, you have your indexed earnings. From that point, it's a simple matter of figuring out which years are your highest 35 and crossing out all the other years. And now you have a list of your earnings to compare future earnings to. Remember, any earnings at 60 and beyond are not indexed for inflation, so all you need to know is, will my earnings this year exceed any of the earnings listed in my high 35? You don't have to worry about indexing your earnings for inflation after age 60. And if your current earnings will be higher, the lower earnings year will be replaced and your benefit will be recomputed, but using the same formula used when your benefit was calculated. So here are a few of the questions that I hear on this topic pretty frequently. First, how common is a recomputation of benefits? Well, it's actually very common, and in fact, nearly everyone has at least one benefits recomputation. This is because of how your earnings are reported to the Social Security Administration, which is, in most cases, your benefit calculation does not include your prior year of earnings. That's because these earnings aren't reported to the administration until the fall of the following year. For example, earnings for 2020 won't be reported until around September of 2021. Is a recomputation automatic, or should I do something? Well, this process is supposed to be automatic. According to the rules, they say when a recomputation is called for, we perform it automatically. But as you may have guessed, there are sometimes a few hiccups in the system. So you don't have to wait on them to initiate their automatic process. You can request this recomputation if you have some evidence that you have earnings in addition to what they used when they calculated your primary benefit amount. Can a recomputation decrease your benefit? No, a recomputation will only be applied if your primary insurance amount, that's again your full retirement age benefit, can be increased by at least $1. However, there is another provision called a recalculation of benefits. I know, most people, the word recalculation and recomputation are synonymous, but not for the Social Security Administration. A recalculation is where your benefit can be increased or decreased if they find clerical or mathematical errors or earnings that were incorrectly included or even excluded in the first computation. Can a recomputation pay you retroactively? Well, as we discussed a moment ago, the administration will typically receive your earnings for the prior year around the fall of the following year. For example, your earnings for 2020 will become available for a recomputation around September of 2021. If they perform a recomputation and see that your benefit should increase, that increase will be paid back to January of 2021 in this example. Don't forget about the earnings test either. If you're going to file for Social Security before full retirement age and keep working, you've got to remember that the earnings test will apply to you. So I've got a video on that. You need to check that out if you're trying to increase your benefit by continuing to work, but you're also getting that Social Security benefit. You need to make sure that you're not going to run afoul of this earnings test because that could create a whole different world of issues. Well, I hope this video was helpful for you, and most of all, I hope that you learned something that you can take and pass along to one of your friends and help them learn something as well. That's the beautiful thing about what we're doing here. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.